Fort Knox is synonymous with absolute security. Yet, despite its fame, almost no one alive knows exactly what sits behind its doors. To understand why this fortress exists, we have to look at the economic collapse of the early 1930s. Banks failed by the thousands, and a panicked public rushed to withdraw whatever wealth they had left. In 1933, President Franklin D. Roosevelt issued an executive order requiring American citizens to surrender their private gold holdings directly to the federal government. The order centralized the nation's wealth, but it created a logistical problem. Most of that gold was stored in New York and Philadelphia, coastal cities vulnerable to naval and aerial attacks. The government needed a new, isolated stronghold deep within the American interior, far out of reach from foreign threats. In 1936, the Treasury Department chose a site surrounded by the rolling hills of Kentucky. The inland geography provided a natural barrier. Builders constructed the vault using thick layers of granite and steel-reinforced concrete, sealing the entrance with a single 22-ton vault door. They situated the facility inside an active military base, adding a perimeter guarded continuously by heavily armed U.S. Mint police. This chart compares national gold reserves. The U.S. poured an estimated 147 million ounces of gold into this single facility, dwarfing the total reserves of nations like the United Kingdom. Inside, the gold was cast into uniform 400 troy-ounce bars and separated into heavily compartmentalized sections. If one section were compromised, the rest would remain locked down. After years of bank failures and financial chaos, the completion of this fortress gave the public a physical location where they could verify the government had centralized and secured the nation's wealth. When the United States entered World War II following the attack on Pearl Harbor, officials faced a new fear: the possibility of Washington, D.C. being bombed by enemy aircraft. Librarian of Congress Archibald MacLeish realized the Capitol's historical archives were completely exposed. He coordinated a classified mission with the Secret Service. They packed the nation's founding documents into bronze containers and moved them by train to the newly built depository in Kentucky. The shipment included the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, a copy of the Magna Carta, and the Gutenberg Bible. By placing these manuscripts alongside the gold, the government turned the vault into a repository for both the country's currency and its written origins. The documents remained hidden, with one exception. In 1943, the Declaration of Independence was temporarily brought to Washington for the dedication of the Jefferson Memorial. The transport required a heavy escort of military police and an army truck equipped with a machine gun before the document was quickly returned to Kentucky. By late 1944, military leaders determined the threat of enemy bombing had passed, and the documents were finally authorized to return to the Capitol. The founding texts emerged from the vault without a single scratch. The climate-controlled, steel-reinforced structure had performed flawlessly. Fort Knox successfully shielded the original records of the nation's founding principles during the most direct threat to the American interior in the modern era. Decades later, the economy shifted. In 1971, President Richard Nixon closed the gold window, cutting the direct tie between the U.S. dollar and physical gold. The depository doors stayed shut. The government allowed zero public access, creating an absolute information vacuum. In the silence, theories spread. Skeptics claimed the Treasury secretly sold the reserves, loaned them, or replaced the bullion with tungsten-filled replicas. To address the growing public mistrust, the government organized an exceptionally rare audit in 1974, inviting officials and journalists inside. The visitors walked into the compartments and found massive stacks of gold bullion, exactly where the Treasury said they would be. The tour provided temporary reassurance, but it highlighted a lasting dynamic. When a government operates in total secrecy, the public will naturally fill the void with suspicion. Today, this raises an obvious question. If the dollar is no longer tied to gold, why does the military still heavily guard millions of ounces of it? Under modern fiat economics, currency is backed by government decree, but central banks still hold physical gold as a tangible hedge against severe economic shocks. Despite this rationale, prominent politicians and public figures continue to demand new, independent audits. The depository projects an image of untouchable national power, signaling to the world that the U.S. remains prepared for a systemic collapse. In a financial system built entirely on confidence, the perception of absolute stability is just as critical as the asset itself.